Okay friends, it's time to get started on our forward engine mount. Now first let's locate it. If you come right down along the front of your engine, you're going to find where that mount's located. As you can tell, it's extremely close to the exhaust, so you want to be very careful and make sure it's not hot to the touch before you continue this process. Now we can start removing the upper nut using an 18mm socket. Now the next thing that we're going to have to do is follow that bracket up, and what you're going to notice is all this is in the way to be able to remove it. So we're going to have to start getting things out of the way to get the bracket off. Let's make our way right up along the top here to the air filter housing. Now for this, what I want to do is grab onto here and here, pop this free. Now we'll come right up here. We're going to remove this from the throttle body. Typically there's going to be a clamp of some sort, but on this vehicle there isn't. It's pretty much just a press fit. So I'm just going to grab onto it and try to roll it off. There we are. Let's grab onto our air temp sensor. There's a little clip along the back side. You just carefully grab onto that, slowly pull it away, and it should want to separate. Every time you disconnect an electrical connector, you want to inspect it, make sure you don't see any funny colors. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Set this aside. Inside here is going to be your air filter. It makes sense to go ahead and take a peek at that as well. Now underneath this area there should be wiring, and that wiring should have a little tab that presses into the bracket. Ours wasn't in there, so essentially we're just going to grab onto it, and you can see inside this area right here, there's a little tab. We're going to have to press that down so we can separate this. Quick inspection, that looks fine. Now the next thing we're going to do is come right up here to this area, squeeze this clamp, pull this hose down. It doesn't have any fluid in it, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's use a hose pick around here. Grab that hose, we'll slide it off of the tube. Now you want to give it a quick inspection, make sure it's still soft and pliable and it doesn't look like it's torn or worn in any way. This one looks fine. Let's move along to the pump itself. Now we're going to have to get this right out of the bracket. What you're going to notice is that it's held in by 3 ears, and those ears go around rubber bushings. All I want to do for these is carefully get in between, and I'm going to try to pull that bushing right out of the ear. We'll do the same on this one. Over here. And now we can go ahead and remove our air pump from the area. Now with that out of the way, we can start dismounting this bracket. You're going to find 3 bolts. There's one down here, and then there's 2 more over on the other side. One's pretty much just directly under the other. Let's go ahead and remove all 3. Remove your air pump bracket. Now let's get underneath the front of the vehicle, and we're going to find where that forward mount mounts onto the subframe. There's an 18mm nut. Let's go ahead and remove that. The next thing we're going to do is use a jack and a piece of wood right underneath the corner of the oil pan. You never want to put a jack directly underneath the center of the oil pan because that's a weak spot and you might potentially cause some damage. Just go ahead and use a piece of wood, apply pressure with your jack, and we can get back up top. Back up inside the engine compartment, let's go ahead and start removing our 3 mounting bolts. Use my 15mm socket for this. Now we can grab the bracket, grab your mount, pull it up and out of the engine compartment. There it is, friends. Okay, friends, now it's time to install our brand new forward mount. Let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to slide it right in position down there on that subframe. Let's get this in place. And slide right over that stud. Then you should want to line up the other 3 holes. We'll start in all 3 of those mounting bolts before we tighten any of them up. And we can snug these up. Once you have them snug, go ahead and torque each of these to 42 foot-pounds. Now once we have all 3 of those torqued, let's go ahead and put on our air pump bracket. Once we have this on all the studs, we can start on all 3 nuts. We'll snug them up, and then we're going to torque these to the same exact torque. Let's torque these to 42 as well. Now let's move down to this area here. We're going to start our nut onto that stud. We'll bottom this out, and then we're going to torque it to 59 foot-pounds. Now let's go ahead and lower our engine. Let's torque this to 59 foot-pounds. Let's make our way under the front of the vehicle. We'll start this nut on here. Now let's bottom it out and then torque this to 59 foot-pounds. Let's torque this top nut to 59 foot-pounds. Let's get our air pump back in there. This area right here is supposed to face up. We have our 2 ears that are going to fit in along here. Once we put both of those in, we'll continue on to the last one right here. Let's start with the wiring. We're going to connect that in, listen for a click. After you hear a click, give it a tug. You want to make sure this is secure. You don't want to have a loose connection. Now you need to make sure that you insert this into the bracket as well. It should go right along this area. Now we're going to swing the wire down and around, put this into place. Start in our 2 ears. This one in there. Now we can do our last ear. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's secure. Now let's get over here to this hose. Slide that into position. Take that clamp, put it up on there. Make sure the hose is nice and tight. Put on your clamp, make sure it's nice and tight. Now it's time to insert our air filter. Slide it right into position here. Make sure both of our clips are in proper position. Now we can put on this piece. You have all of these little ears. They need to fit into the grooves down along the bottom of the box. Slide that right onto the throttle body. When you put this on the throttle body, you want to make sure you inspect it all the way around to make sure it's completely seated. You don't want any dirty air getting drawn into the engine while it's running. Slide this in. Make sure you lock it down. We're going to reconnect our air temp sensor. Listen for a click, give it a tug, make sure it's secure. Okay friends, we got our motor mount back inside the vehicle. What's left to do now? Now typically you're going to want to go ahead and start it up and let it run for a little bit. You want to make sure that you don't have any strange vibrations coming from that engine, and also make sure you don't have a check engine light. After that, take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.